It's the Bishop.
And Oz.
We're glad to be back once again.
Yep.
Appreciate you all taking out your time to be with us on this very special episode of the Bishop and Oz.
Yeah.
We are so happy today that we have a special guest, none other than Pastor Terry Clark of St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church here in the city of Terre Haute, Indiana. Welcome, Pastor.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Right, God.
Thanks for coming.
And we are not going to waste this time. We're not going to waste this time. We're going to get him going and do what we got to do. The subject today is Black History Month.
All right.
So many times when people say Black history, you have some people that cringe because they feel like we're trying to separate ourselves from everybody else.
Right.
So we wanted to bring you here because he is a professor of African American Studies at Indiana State University, as well as a pastor. And I feel that he has something to say on the topic of Black history and Black History Month. So what would you say to that person that may cringe and think that Black History Month is something that tries to separate us instead of unify us?
I would tell them, first off, there's no reason to cringe because understanding where Black History Month originated from, it was actually from an African-American educator, Carter G. Woodson, who growing up wasn't even able to go to high school till he was 19. And so he worked in salt mines, but he worked with black men who had been veterans of the Civil War. Never heard anything about them, their experiences or anything like that. So it had him thinking that, there are things that people who look like me have done that's not recorded in any of the history books. People don't know about them and whatnot. So he dedicated his life's work in order to do that. And so he started out, of course, teaching as an educator. He established a couple of publications or whatnot. And then finally, in the second week of February 1926, he established what was called Negro History Week. Mm-hmm. This was simply a week or a time where the achievements, accomplishments of people of African descent could be put out there in the spotlight, that people would know about what Black people had contributed to America and so on and so forth. But he did it with the intention of, at some point, there would be no more need for it because, again, the accomplishments of Black people would be integrated into history. And so one thing I tell my students is that Black history is American history.
Right.
Because if there is no history that includes people who look like us, then the story of America is not complete at all.
Right.
And so that's why I would tell people don't cringe. It's simply it's not there to separate anybody, but it's there to introduce to a number of people the fact that there's another perspective to history that some people don't know about.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
And I think that's something right there. Yeah. Because a lot of times when we look at history, like we watch some of these history shows, and it does show one side. Just one side. And some people may get upset when this statement, but when they say, they want to make America great again, and people say, the good old days. Good old days for who?
Right.
Because maybe for a specific group, it was good.
Right.
But for another group, if we know the history, it wasn't that great.
That's right.
Dealing with oppression and poverty and all this other stuff. So tell me, where was the greatness at?
Well, that's a real good question. Years ago, I was still in the service. I was stationed in Missouri and went to a dinner of the local chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen. Ooh. And actually retired General B.O. Davis, Jr., who led the Tuskegee Airmen, was the speaker. And that's how he led off. He said, people talk about the good old days, but for us, there were no good old days. Jackie Robinson wrote a book called I Never Had It Made. So the titles of these books basically stated that, what happened to us, we got through a lot of struggle and so on and so forth. And so, but understand, it's the struggles of people, ordinary people, who because of their courage, because of their dedication, because of their commitment, these are people who helped make America great. You know, and so without them, again, the true story and the full story is not told. So you have people who, like I said, were there to make America great. Now there's a movie that came out recently on Netflix, okay, produced by Tyler Perry, and that was about the 688, and an outstanding film, the 68th, 88th Central Postal Battalion, that was overseas. Now, when I looked at that, as great a movie as it was, think about what this battalion of hundreds of black women had to do. You know, for 10 months, I believe in 1942, 1943, whenever it was, for 10 months, no mail was received by any of the soldiers overseas, and neither of their families had received any mail from them. And I'm thinking about my overseas tour over in Turkey. I was supposed to have been there back in 1990 for a year, but it got curtailed to 10 months because they deactivated the site. I was there for 10 months. I'm thinking, what would have happened if the 10 months I was there, I never got a letter. Wow. I never got one piece of mail. All that time, nothing that I wrote ever got back home, and I wonder how would that affect me? And I was there during peacetime. You know, I got home before the first Gulf War. But anyway, think about these men who are in combat, who are on the front lines every day, and they lived just to get here's news from home and couldn't do that. These ladies over a period of 9 months sorted through 17 million pieces of mail. Wow. And soldiers began to get their mail. People began to get their mail at home. When I was over in Turkey back in 1990, there's only two things we counted on every day: food, meals, and mail. And every weekday morning about 10:30, we stood outside waiting for this little aqua blue truck, you know, to drive up into the compound because he had our mail. We looked for that every day. You know, and so when I thought about it, it resonated with me about how important it is for people to be able to hear, you know, that get correspondence and know that they're you know, how their families are doing. Yeah. You think about it. You got people they didn't, if they had their wives were expecting babies when they left. They don't know if they had their kids were born. They don't know if any of their loved ones or relatives had passed away while they've been there. They don't even know if their girlfriend they were going with is still with them. I mean, there's stuff they just didn't know. You know, and when you're out there and your life is on the line, you know, that really weighs heavy on a person.
Oh yeah.
But this is just one of the stories that had never been told. See, when I was, because I'm old now, but back when I was a kid and we studied history, we only studied history about all black people they were slaves. Yeah. And they got set free. That was it.
Wow.
No, that was it.
And that gets me. Every movie got to be slavery. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Everything is, you know. It seemed like it was doom and gloom, but there was, I believe, when you talk about this movie, there were bright spots. People did some great things. Yeah. And I wish those were highlighted more. And I wish it wasn't always just the particulars, because I remember when we was in school, it was always Martin Luther King. Yeah. It was
Malcolm X,
Rosa Parks. Yeah. Then, you know, they updated a little bit and they got Oprah. Yeah. You know, and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, that's nice. But there are so many more. Right. So many more stories out there that haven't been told. You know, that may inspire some of our young people that look like you have done great things. Yes. You know, in various fields. Maybe a black scientist. Everybody not playing sports. You
That's
know
true.
What I'm
That's
saying?
right. That's right.
And they need to know that your history is way more richer than that. Right. You know, it goes way further than that. We have done some great stuff. Yeah. And you ought to know it. Mm-hmm. And my fear is, especially for this generation that's here, it seems like they don't have a desire. Okay. And just from my perspective, it seemed like I don't see the desire to really to know this. Yeah, there's a reason for that, though. One of the reasons is because when you had a generation who had gone through some things, and a lot of things, that's still within them, and so a number of them taught that to their children. But you have kids now, and I mean even at the college level, they come in, they know nothing about struggle. You know, they even when they take classes that I teach, it's just another class to them. You know, they're taking it for whatever credit because it fit in their schedule, or they couldn't take nothing else.
or something like that, And so, but that's kind of what the difference is. I mean, the material's the same. There used to be a time years and years and years ago, when we started teaching and whatnot. I used to have students who they challenged me, well, this is what happened, I don't know, that kind of stuff, which is fine. But they had some knowledge about some stuff because they were taught it, they studied it, and so forth, But like I said, nowadays, if it's not on Netflix or TikTok or one of those other things, they're really not too much interested.
Now, Pastor, could you answer this question? And I know that you teach at a college level, but do you think that Black history is being taught in the high schools as much as it should be, or when they come to you in college, they have no idea because they haven't seen any much Black history in the high schools that they come from?
Good question. When I asked students, I said, how much Black history had you had before you came here? About Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, maybe so and so and so and so. Very rarely you have a student or two who say, I did have a Black history class. We learned about this, we learned about that, which is great, but it's rare. And so a number of students, they didn't really know too much about any of the subject matter until they came to college and began being taught this different perspective about history and so on and that's when they started learning.
Wow.
I think Black history, it gives me a sense of pride, and not a negative pride.
Yeah, because representation is important.
Yeah.
I know people try to put that in a negative light, but representation is important. At least to me. Because, you know what I mean? Because if all I seen was Black people do bad stuff,
right,
then I'm going to look at myself as a Black person and go, man, I can't do nothing right. Look at my history.
Right.
And if you look at the way we get portrayed on television.
Oh, yes. Thugs, gangsters, pimps, and...
it's like, where is the positive?
Yeah.
Where are the fathers? Everybody... all the fathers are out and it's just only single Black mothers. And it's that. I mean, just like, that's not it. And everybody's not no rapper. You know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't cussing and doing. We got businessmen. We got doctors.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I remember when one time I was looking at the presidential map, and how they had the whole list of presidents, and I looked at that map and I said to myself, I see nobody that looks like me. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that. It's just like all these years and none of us was qualified enough.
Yeah.
And finally we get Barack Obama and, we got a spot now on this huge list.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on. Even in 2025, we still getting first.
Yeah.
When we should have been ahead, years ago. You know what I'm saying? You're the first to...
Yeah.
Why am I still the first?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pushback against that because I think one thing I share with my class is that people say, well, I don't see color, I'm colorblind. I says, well, if you're saying you're colorblind, then you're basically saying that I'm invisible.
Right.
One of the books I teach a class in the Harlem Renaissance, and one of the books is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. He starts out the book by saying, I am an invisible man. People don't see me. And so when people say, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, you don't see me. Because what you don't see is, I'm not just talking about complexion and all this stuff. I mean, but things that I've been through, things that I've had to deal with, and this, that, and the other that maybe you didn't have to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when people basically say that, it says, I says, well, here we are. I said, here we are, 160 or 170 years after slavery, and we're still celebrating the first of us who's done something specifically. But people are like, why is it always got to be, why is it always got to be about race? Why is it always got to be? Because understand is, you know what I call that? I call that a victim mentality. They lay that on heavy on us.
Yeah.
But when all the people act like they're the persecuted people, they're the ones who are always this and always that, that's a victimization mentality to me. Like people in Charlottesville who carry tiki torches saying, you will not replace us. That's a victim mentality. If I know somebody who'll watch this, I'll get a bunch of feedback on, but that's okay. Somebody who's Caucasian who you know, but I won't deal with him.
No,
That's all
yeah.
right.
So I don't.
Which leads me to this question. Can you explain to the people out there that Black history is not out here to try to shame the Caucasian man, but just to put some light that there are Black men and women out here who has done something good and who are doing something good.
Right. Some call critical race theory basically seeing race in the eyes of what white people did wrong. And so since I had nothing to do with it, since my children had nothing to do with it, why should they have to feel ashamed about what happened? I said, that's not the point or the intent. The basic intent primarily is just to educate, not to convert, simply to educate. But you can't put your head in the sand and say because this, that, and the other happened that it's not noteworthy to talk about or to teach.
Yeah.
Now, if you say to me, well, you know what, we're going to educate this, that, and the other about mistakes you made doing whatever. Well, you know what, I can't deny the mistakes I made. I've got to own them.
Right.
And so with that, then it's something. I'll give you one example. Before Ray Charles died, and they made the movie Ray, he told them, don't hide anything. His heroin addiction and all that stuff, he says, don't leave any of that out. He said he wanted an honest portrayal of his life.
Yeah.
Which is what he did. He could have easily said, hey, you know what? Don't put that stuff in because I want people to remember me as this and that and the other. He said, but I want people to know how it actually was.
Yeah.
And understand that primarily when the truth is told about it and mistakes are made, and to think about it, that when you're the race that's always been criticized, there's no theory behind it.
All right.
That's good stuff.
That is.
And see, I want to say this because if you ain't already turned us off, because sometimes people hear this stuff. This is just.
But this is the stuff that needs to be talked about.
No, it got to be, and not just in February.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I do thank God for Black History Month.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, this has to be taught every day
To everybody.
You know what? It has to be. And I'm really honing in on our children. Our sons and our daughters need to know this. They need to know where they come from. They need to know the things that happen. A lot of times they need to know so they won't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Right.
We went down this alley and we got beat up. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you the history. We went down that alley. You don't want to go down that alley because if you go down that alley, you're probably going to get beat up. So if I tell you the history, if I try to teach you this, maybe you'll go another way. You know?
And I think it's important that we give a sense of ourselves that we're not as some TV shows, media try to portray Black people as being thugs and gangsters, and we only sag our pants and you know what I mean, can't hold down a job. I think it's important to show those things, that Black history is also important to show that we're not just that.
Yeah.
That we're more than that.
Way more.
So it's just Black history in general is important. And if we're going to sit here, and I've seen people say this, and I'm not trying to start no race fights, but I've seen people say, well, Black history is American history. Why can't we just call it American history? I'm just like, well, let's incorporate it into the schools, the way the other history is told. And then this maybe won't be a subject that we want to talk about, that needs to be talked about anymore.
Right.
Fight for it. Like if they was not telling the history of George Washington and all that type of stuff the way that they tell it every single day, and every single school year, if they didn't, I'm sorry, I'm going off point, but if they didn't tell that story every single year, somebody would fuss about, oh, you didn't tell them about the founding fathers of our okay, well, that's the same way we feel. You didn't tell them about the founding people of Black history that made this, that got us to where we are today. But, whole nother subject, whole nother talk.
Yeah, don't say nothing about the first president of the United States was actually Black.
Yeah.
Don't say stuff like that. Because, that stuff ain't, that's hearsay.
Not relevant. Yeah, it's not relevant.
But it's so much. Black History Month is a amazing month. I think it ought to be celebrated everywhere, amongst everybody. I hear that they're trying to do things to pull funding away from it. I pray that that's not the case. But even if they do pull the funding, they can't stop you from educating yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
cannot do that. You know, they can stop all the programs if they want to. They can't stop you from educating yourself. I think it's very important that you know where you come from. Very important.
Yeah. I don't know what'll happen maybe at the state level. I know they're talking at the federal level. I said, all you can do is just cancel Black History Month programs at the federal level, or this, that, and the other. But you can't stop people from learning. You know, if they can't teach them here or there or whatever, I said, then I think, our churches should take up the mantle.
That part.
Yeah, our churches should take up the mantle. And so if I can make a shameless plug for just a second, on Saturday, February 22nd at noon, there's an organization called the History Diversity Organization of Terre Haute that was founded by my wife last year. And so last year there was a program to bring the community together for a Black History program. We had it at our church. On that Saturday, the 22nd of February at noon, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to get a widespread group, bring all the churches together to have, that way we can all have one mass Black History Month service. And not this one have this one there, that one have that one, this one have this one, that one have that one. We can all come together and have one large program and so on and so forth. I mean, this year, it'll also be in our church, but we're looking to have it rotated for next year, because it's not a St. Paul program. It's the organization is basically doing it, and we're trying to get representation as part of the organization, basically from all our churches, so we can come together and celebrate together and push that educational envelope together.
Hey, man,
If you're in the area,
yeah.
you need to be there. And we can get the information and we can put it on a screen so that you'll know when it is, where it is, what time it is, so that you can be a part of that if you're in this area. And if you're not in this area, find a place that's celebrating. Find a place so that you could be amongst community, so you can learn something that maybe you didn't know. Because guaranteed you don't know it all. Because this history being made every day.
Every day.
And so be a part of that. I think it's very important. And the Bishop and us, we making history.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because everyone not doing this like us. This is historic.
Yes.
So you're part of history. Thank God for it.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much, Pastor Clark, for coming and being with us. He said something that may trigger another episode. He said something, because he said something, and if you see a second episode with him on here, it's his fault. He triggered me, but I didn't want to jump in when he said it. We gonna thank y'all for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and comment. And as always, it's the Bishop
and us.
We'll catch you next time. This is the Bishop.